Okay, so today is the second day of completing the square to get from standard form to vertex form. So we're going to do a simple one here where the a value is equal to 1. That's what you've done so far. And just to remind you the steps of completing the square. Okay, so you have to do, so this is a, b, and c, right? So that is standard form. So standard form ax squared plus bx plus c. And then we are, to complete the square, you do half the b value and square it. So that's 14 divided by 2 squared, which is 7 squared, or 49. So then we are creating a perfect square trinomial. So you add the number and then subtract the number. So add first. And you want to add and subtract, of course, because when you add 49 and subtract 49, you're going to get 0. So it essentially doesn't change the equation. We don't break any math rules. Okay, so now we're going to factor the trinomial. How many terms is tri? 3. So we're going to factor 1, 2, 3 terms. If that stresses you out, remember the factor is going to be this number here. So I'll even use green over here. So plus 7. And then you just collect like terms. Negative 49 plus 18 becomes negative 31. Okay? So up to this point, all of the quadratic expressions we've done have had an a value of 1. So what happens when the a value is not 1? Okay, so we are going to have to do an extra factoring step first. And all you need to do, we want it to be a equals 1, so you're just going to factor out the coefficient. So if it's just a -1, if it's a 2, if it's a 900, you're just going to take whatever that number is, and that is going to be your common factor. So you don't have to worry about trying to figure out what to use as your common factor. You're going to use the number out front of the x term. Okay, so this year we're going to get nice whole numbers, and then in grade 11 you'll have to complete the square where it's not perfect numbers. Okay, so this procedure will still work even if you have decimals or fractions or anything like that. All right, so but that's next year. Okay, so here is a completed version. We'll just go through. So really we have this is now our first step here. You need to factor out the 2. So again, whatever number is here, that's going to be your common factor. And because we just kind of leave the c value, then we're going to do the same thing. So you're just common factoring it out of these 2 terms. So from the x term, so use the coefficient in front of the x squared term and use the x squared and the x term, not the c value. Okay, so similar to the other method for completing the square, we just sort of left c till the end, and then we simplified and did in the last example we just did negative 49 plus 18. We just left it till the end. You can see here the 1 just sort of carries through until we collect like terms down here. Okay, so just leave the c value alone. And so, like I said, in grade 10, it should always work out to nice numbers. Divide 2, divide 2. So you get x squared plus 6. So now it has become the b value here. So when you do half of b and square it, which is the same thing we did last time, you're using this new b value. Okay? So then half of b is 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So you're doing the same thing. Add and subtract the 9, just like we did last time. And then leaving the c value. But here's an extra step. So it actually doesn't matter what order you do 4 and 5 in, but what you have to do is, like you can factor first. So here that we've factored the trinomial to make our perfect square, but we still have this -9 to deal with. And unfortunately, when you have that, then if you'll notice these square brackets, that means that this 2 applies to the x plus 3 in brackets squared term, but it also applies to the 9. So you actually have to multiply whatever the common factor was that you used. You have to multiply that by the subtracted half b squared value. So, and I recommend that you write it out like this. You write -9 times 2, and then you simplify it to -18, and then like just do the -9 times 2, and then collect like terms. So, or simplify. So this is step 6. This is step 5, 4, okay, and then 3. So some of it is the same, but doing this common factor step is important first. We want in order to complete the square, we want the a value to be 1. And then once you have factored out that a value that isn't 1, then make sure you distribute it with the subtracted number. Because the added number here, this 9 here, was part of the trinomial that was meant to be factored. Okay, so let's do some more examples that aren't filled in. Okay, we're gonna do both of these, and then we're gonna continue trying to talk about what the optimal value is, like maximum, minimum, what the vertex is, because remember we're trying to get to vertex form, which is going to be important when we do word problems in 6.5. Okay, so we are going to common factor, right? So step number 1. Now, here, again, you just don't have to guess, okay? You do 3. And so divide 3. And what often will happen is, let's say, sorry, that was a terrible 8. Let's say you forget how many terms to factor it from. Then if you look here, you can't do 17 divided by 3. That doesn't give a nice number. So hopefully that's your clue. Oh yes, I'm just going to leave that alone. I just include the c value, and I'll collect like terms at the end. Okay, now we're going to do, I'm just going to get a different color, half of b squared. Now remember, we're talking about this b. Which is 16. Now, you can do 4 and 5. I just forgot something. I'm just gonna clean that up a little bit. You can do 4 and 5 sort of together. You can put this, I'm gonna make this red. You can do this step here. So now you've got your trinomial, x squared plus 8x plus 16, but then, and then the minus 16 that is outside that trinomial, you can put the times 3 right there. That's the that is the distribution step. So let me see if I can, like step number 5, if I can write it in there. Okay. And then you can factor, which is step 3. Oh, add and subtract, that's step 3, that's right here. And then you can factor. Again, you leave the 3. And take the half b value you got. That's the perfect square. And then -16 times 3 is 48, -48, sorry. And then that c value still at the end. And then step number 6, you just simplify. Okay, so now this is vertex form. So let's say we had to graph. And the step pattern, you would use this a value here. So 1 times 3, 5 times 3, sorry, 3 times 3, 5 times 3. And then the vertex would be, this is left and this is down because it's negative. So left -4 and down is -31. So since it's a positive a value, then the parabola opens up. So the optimal value, or the vertex, is a minimum when y is -31, sorry, and the x value is -4. So over here, now we have a negative a value, which means the parabola opens down, and that's fine. But when you choose your common factor, you're going to divide by -4, okay? You don't want that negative in there either. You want your a value to be just 1, okay? So this time we have -4. Again, all I did was take this number here, okay? I didn't do anything tricky. I want the x squared to have a 1 in front of it. And then I'm going to do x squared. Oh, I'll write out my b work here. So half b squared. Remembering now this is b. So we have -4x plus 4, and then -4, remembering to do the -4, and then we just keep our c value at the end. So we have step 3, step 5, and then, I did the wrong color. So now we can factor this trinomial. So it's going to be -2. That was the number up here, squared. And then -4 times -4 is +16, and plus 1. And then we just simplify. Okay, so because it opens down, because of this negative, then we have a maximum value this time when y is 17, when x is -2, or +2, sorry, that's the vertex. So this is right when you go do the opposite and up. I'll make that nicer. Okay, so these 17, -31, those are pretty wild x values or y values, okay? So usually our grids are not that big. So again, we're going to do an example where you're asked to sketch the graph. So then you would have to be given a grid. So you can see here that this grid on the y-axis goes up to 15. So that means that when we complete the square, our vertex should be within the limits of this grid. And if it's not, then that's your clue. Whoops, I think I made a mistake. I'm going to go back, okay? So there's a whole bunch of things here that you can kind of check your answers. So here, it almost looks like we can just go ahead and complete the square. But again, we can't have anything out front here. So this is like dividing by -1, okay? So we still do not want to have anything out front of our, sorry, I wrote 18 there. Anything out front of our x squared term, Okay, so now we're gonna do, this is the b, so half of b squared. And again, if you're starting to get used to this and you don't need to show this step, that's fine. But if you want to show this step, that's fine. And one of the good things about it is that then you can see what the number is. You're going to put in the factored part. So now we have x squared plus 10x plus 25 minus 25, which has to be multiplied by -1 minus 13. So now inside we put the plus 5 and we get positive 25 because negative 25 times -1 is positive 25 minus 13. X plus 5 squared plus 12. Okay, so there's your clue. Okay, this 12, which is going to be move the vertex up 12. Okay, in the positive direction, I can fit that. And then the positive 5 means we move left. So the vertex is -5, 12. So just check -5 and 12. I can fit that on my graph, no problem. And then if you take a look where the vertex is, because it's so high up the graph, it probably, don't write this down because it's not right. This probably doesn't make sense. This kind of curve, okay? So then you would probably think in your head, oh, it's probably gonna go like that, okay? So again, try to look at the clues that are given to you. All right, so now the step pattern, we have the a value is -1. So that's where we get the down. Okay, so over 1, down 1, over 1, down 1, 2, 3, over 1, down 1, 2, 3, over 1, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, over 1, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can we do any more? Over 1, down 1, 2, 3, whoops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, we can even do 7. Oh, not on that side. Never mind. 7 is too much as usual. Okay, we can just draw a nice parabola and have arrows. And then, of course, we are preparing ourselves to do word problems. So now we have, because the parabola opens down, we have a maximum value of y is 12 when x equals -5. Okay, so there are some homework questions here from the textbook, and then these extra questions, give those a try as well. This is an important concept. The more practice you do, the better. And then there will be a separate file with the answers for those. Okay, thank you.